Hi there, and welcome to Job Talk with SP Jain School of Global Management. I'm Dr. CJ, your host, and we're broadcasting from the AI and Advanced Technologies Department at SP Jain's Singapore campus. This show is a tribute to Car Talk, but gives you a chance to ask questions about jobs, work, careers, and life mission. So, if you have a work related question or problem on any topic, doesn't have to be today's theme, just send an email to jobtalk@spjane.org and our secret moderator will pass it to us. You're anonymous, the moderator's anonymous. Hey, I don't get to be anonymous, but never mind. We'll either help you solve your problem or at least help you laugh and know you're not alone. First, time for a Did You Know? Notable news. Straight from the news desk at SP Jain. Now, this is a little item which was an anonymous LinkedIn post-in shared by TIE, premier network of 15,000 funders and founders worldwide. Listen to this. We're just 50 days into 2022. And already, nuclear fusion saw another major breakthrough, a huge step in the quest for clean energy. A woman was cured of HIV through a breakthrough in stem cell treatment. MIT engineers created an impossible new material, stronger than steel, but as light as plastic. An international team of scientists used supercomputers to unlock a giant leap in the fight against antibiotic resistance. A new game-changing carbon capture technology could deliver a step change in our ability to remove carbon dioxide from the air. Researchers set a new Guinness World Record for faster ever DNA sequencing technique, using it to sequence a human genome in just 5 hours and 2 minutes. A new breakthrough in spinal cord implant, quote, could potentially allow paralyzed people to walk again. That's a very big deal. A groundbreaking new technology regrew a frog's lost leg, and it might work on humans too. Surgeons completed the first ever heart transplant with a genetically modified animal heart, saving the life of a 57-year-old and taking a big step towards helping solve the global donor organ shortage. Biodegradable surgical tape has been invented, making some intestinal fixes as easy as, quote unquote, duct tape around leaky pipes. I have leaky pipes. I like this. James Webb, the awe-inspiring $10 billion space telescope, 25 years in the making, took its first images. A huge scientific milestone. Only a few more. An autonomous drone carrying a defibrillator saved the life of a 71-year-old having a heart attack. This is a first in medical history. Researchers in Sweden found a promising way to use solar power to convert carbon dioxide into fuel using ultrafast laser spectroscopy. Last one. The world is far from perfect. But we shouldn't forget that about 90% of all scientists that ever lived are alive today. Never before have we had so many people about whose sole purpose of work is to better understand how the world works. So 2022 is really shaping up to be the year of the tiger for science and technology. Now, my guest today is Arun Sundar. He's the founder of the Social Capital Institute and a renowned technology business leader. An AI expert, he's the founder of, like I said, the Social Capital Institute. He built with a mission of providing education and evangelizing the concept of social capital. And I think we'll talk more about that today. Because he believes that's the currency that propels the human neural evolution forward. He's also founding chairman of the Asia Analytics Alliance, chief marketing officer at Entomo, and a board member of Asia Cloud Computing Association. Now, today's theme, as I mentioned, is AI and technology, advanced technologies. So the big question is, how can you, listeners, network and build career resilience in the age of AI, machine learning, robotics, and all these incredible advances? Arun, welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you, CJ. Happy to be here.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So can you tell me a little bit more about what got you into a career that seems to be rooted in technology, but also rooted in humanity?
Thank you for asking that question because that's a question that I keep asking myself almost every day. Because interestingly, the world sees these two things as opposing, while in reality, one feeds the other. Right. So let me explain why I said that. So technology started as what? Technology started as an enabler. Enabler to help people do things which they already did in a better way. And humanities started as what? To understand why we are the way we are. Interestingly, what's happening now is that technology is feeding the humanity in terms of helping understand humans more about why they are the way they are and even helping them reach where they should be reaching. And the other way around. Humanities is teaching technology how you should be evolving and how you should not. So it is very interwoven. It's very interesting, but the fundamental patterns are same on both. Now that's a very cognitive answer, but what got me interested is the simplicity in the whole thing, right? Because when you have a question in technology, where you should look for an answer is humanity. When you have a question in humanity, where you should look for is an answer in technology. That's it.
Oh, wow. Now, there are some folks who have seen the humans need not apply video, and they are thinking, oh God, 45% of jobs are going to go away. Jobs are going to go away. Humans are going to be useless. Is that what's going to happen?
So let me not answer that question, rather ask you a different question. So
Oh
years
God,
back,
have you been to Harvard?
okay. So
That's a
let me
great
not,
question. What do you think?
let me not ask you a question then. So let me give you a perspective to that with another question. So years back, when banking as an industry started, right? So very few people probably have read this, right? There is a complete thesis on the history of banking. When banking started, the trust factor on banks were very low. Right? How is it that I can believe in someone and park my money with someone and expect that person to give me the money back when I need it, and that too with a little bit of interest? That's a concept which is hard to digest, right? But eventually, what happened was that that concept is what is driving the whole economy forward. That it has even
Hmm.
reached a point where keeping money with yourself, your own money with yourself, is almost akin to financial crime, right? So the point that I'm making is any technology when it starts, the curiosity about how it's going to start affecting me in a bad way is much more than the curiosity on how is it going to help me in the long run. And you
Yeah.
can't blame that, right? Like, for example, car accidents and cars. When was car accident invented? Car accidents were actually invented. Car accidents were invented the day cars were invented. So there is nothing wrong in looking at it skeptically, but also there is a bright side to it. Whether we go into the bright direction or the dark one, it's all about the choices that we make.
Hmm. And what you're reminding me of is actually um, a very old technology, helmets, which not everybody in India wears when they're riding a motorcycle, by the way. Um, so when helmets were first introduced in World War One, um, it was thought to be an advance for all the soldiers. And then the folks who track the statistics and the performance of this thing, they found that instead of decreasing head injuries actually more head injuries had to be treated. Um, and the answer to why is actually a trick of statistics. Have you ever heard of this one?
No, I
Would you
haven't.
like to comment on that? Well, the thing is, the head injuries and the need to take care of people who had had serious head injuries, that exploded because they weren't dead.
Okay.
So, in creating technologies and applying them to the human condition, whether it be in wartime or peacetime, we're going to create more problems because we're escaping other bigger problems. Um, and I've got to ask. There's so many people out there saying, "Am I just going to be replaced with a bot? What should I do about it as an entry level person or even as a senior executive?"
So the first, let's. So something interesting that you had mentioned in between about helmets and India. People don't wear helmets in India, right? So the if people wear a lot of helmets, if people wear helmets a lot, right, and they will end up with something like this, right? So that was the justification that I myself gave to some of the cops that stopped me on the road on why are you not wearing a helmet?
A,
It's a
it's chafing your skin. What's the problem?
right. That's what. So I mean, you lose hair is the reason that you give.
Oh, stop it.
But the reality is that you lose hair irrespective of whether you wear a helmet or not.
Yeah.
Sometimes correlation and causation are two different things. But when you want to stop something, you start giving causations in the place of correlations, right? So the reason why I
Yeah.
stated that is because after this question of will I be replaced by AI? The I know the I might sound come across as a little harsh, but if someone's were to start thinking that will I be replaced and I should stop anything that will replace me, even if AI doesn't come, they will be replaced. Something else
Okay.
will replace them, right? Because the real answer is that AI cannot replace human beings, but AI can replace certain skills, especially when there's a pattern to that skill, right? Because the human brain, for whatever wonder it is, it has its own limitations. The amount of data storage possible, the amount of patterns that it can learn and retain in our minds, or even the number of relationships that we can forge, the number of names that we can remember. There is a limitation to the human brain's capacity. But when it comes to multitasking, our neural networks are best to none, like at least
Hmm.
till date. So the point that I'm making is certain skills are clearly replaceable, but
Hmm.
certain skills are not. So identifying which skills are you known for, or which are the skills that a machine cannot replace you, and accordingly learning and building on that is where the answer to whether you'll be replaced or not lies. It is not a generic question; it's a skill specific question. Is the point that I'm making.
So basically, how can I, what skills? How can I do stuff better than a bot? How can I be smarter than a bot? Let's not get personal, not just me.
Yeah. So it's a deeper question back to humanities, right? So I started off by saying that when you have a technology question, the easiest place is to look at humanities for the answer. So the
Yep.
question, let's analyze this question from that vector. The technology
Hmm.
question here is, what is it that technology cannot do, right? So the answer lies in what is it that only humans can do. If you look at the human intelligence maze, there are so many different vectors that make the human intelligence maze, right? And we ourselves do not know it completely. So you ask,
Hmm.
or if you speak to brain scientists or people who do a lot of research on human brain, they will tell you that such a marvelous thing that we have understood nothing about it, right? So that's the
Yeah.
marvel of the human brain. So if you haven't understood completely about something, how do you learn the intricacies of it? By looking at symptoms. So what are the things that human beings have done so well that other species did not do, right? Because there are certain things that human beings have done, something we have done really, really well, right? So our DNA sequence matching when compared to a chimpanzee is like less than 1% difference. But still, there is something which we have done really well that we have become the species that has broken the chain of command and are sitting at the top. What is that thing
How
that's
come they're
keeping?
inside the zoo and we're out? Well, although being
Yeah,
inside the zoo might be the better job. But anyway, how come they're inside the zoo and we're outside?
that's correct. So how come? So that's where the answer lies, right? So there is that one thing or a few things which you have done very well compared to other species, and that's something which I don't think even technology can replicate, because
So,
other species are very mechanical, while we have something which we might call it free will or whatever, but something which we are doing better. That's where the answer lies.
so what is it that what kind of skills do we need to focus on? What kind of capabilities do we need to focus on? And how do we need to interact with these advanced systems as like a person who needs to work for a living?
Good. So all my effort till now, CJ, was to force you into asking that question to me. Right?
Oh, thank you. You could have just told me.
So the back to the previous point that I was making, what is that one thing which we did better than others? I think that one thing which we did better than others is in our ability to forge social capital structures beyond our small tribes. So if you look at our ability to build social capital structures, it is amazing. So look at this point in time, what we are doing. So you and I sitting in this island of Singapore, right? And we are being listened to and conversed with so many different people from different parts of the world, while our instruments, whether it is phones, laptops, inboxes, are buzzing with messages and communication from different parts of the world. So at any given point in time, the amount of social capital that we as individuals and our communities are able to forge is phenomenal. And I personally believe that's the difference that human beings have. You look at any civilization has been built on top of that civilization's ability to build a social capital structure within or outside. And that is something which an AI will never be able to do, but human beings will always be able to. And I think that's where the difference is.
So this kind of sci-fi cyber fear thing where we think that all of the AI engines and bots are going to get smarter than us. We're going to be like ants to them and they're going to squash us. We don't need to be scared of that, right?
We,
Socially or economically.
I personally believe we definitely need to be scared of that. Right? We definitely need to be
Oh, we do.
scared.
We should
Yes.
be.
Yes, we should
Okay.
be. But the reason being, these are technologies which are capable of doing things better than us in certain aspects. So the point is all about where do we deploy these technologies in. So if we deploy these technologies in solving specific use cases, specific human problems, specific social problems, than making them trying to make them a replica of ourselves, I think that's where the solution lies. But my
But
confidence in that happening is not extremely high.
why?
The answer has a multiple. It has a multifolded answer, but I will just give you a couple of reasons. Generally, the compliance of technology, we have outsourced that to the government. Okay? So generally, our belief is that while technology will do everything that is important, the role of ensuring that technology does not do anything bad, we expect the governments to take care of that. Right? All said and done, even today, with despite whatever councils, anything that we talk about, ethics council, this, that, everything, end of the day, the the subtle tacit expectation of catching the wrongdoers is outsourced to the government. But the problem is that the pace at which technology moves is so fast that no compliance body in the world can even digest the potential problem that can happen at this point in time. So there's a huge disconnect there. So it actually is becoming a social problem. Now the problem with with any social problem is that society always takes sides. So we do not have a uniform code of conduct. So when we do not have a uniform code of conduct, how are we going to enforce a norm? While law is also failing you are because the technology is growing so fast that the organizations which are in charge of enacting laws are falling behind, and society doesn't have a norm. So that's where the bad news is. But I don't want to spend this evening spending a lot of time on the bad news. But the good news is that The Hollywood has hyped it up a little too much, that it takes a lot of time to emulate the human brain because we ourselves do not know how it works.
We've never been able to replicate this supercomputer between your ears. Um, I found it super, super, super interesting that Josh Bersin over at Deloitte, he's looked at incomes of people with technical and mathematical type, hard skills and soft skills, a combination of both and neither. And he looked at how incomes have progressed over, say, 3 decades. And here's what he found: people with neither soft nor hard skills, actually, yeah, their incomes have actually, in real terms, gone down. Bad news for the base of the pyramid. On the middle level, there's a group that slightly went up and a group that slightly went down. I think this group that slightly went down was the soft skills only. The slightly went up was the hard skills only. But the group that really made out and has increased their real income is the hard and soft skills combined. Actually, I think I've probably screwed up the middle two. I think that I'm going to take that back. I think if I remember correctly, and an AI engine would remember absolutely correctly, but I can't. Sorry. The slightly improved was the soft skills. The slightly declined was the hard skills, because you can replicate hard skills a lot more easily than you can replicate and train the soft skills.
Yeah.
Um, mm.
So CJ,
So
actually, that's a very, very, very pertinent example in the scheme of our conversation. And let me tell you why I think so. So there are various studies on what are the types of human intelligence possible, right? So one of the favorite study classifies 9 types of intelligence that human beings have, right? And one type of intelligence, for example, is an intelligence which human beings have to understand the patterns that they see in nature, right?
yeah,
And another type of intelligence is the a capability to understand directions, which is a spatial intelligence, right? The
okay,
third type of intelligence, there are among 9, I'll take only 3 and give you an example. So the third type of intelligence is the ability to understand logical structures, right?
yep.
And for the sake of clarity, I promise. There's a fourth type of intelligence I'm going to talk and stop. The ability to understand abstract concepts, right? Now let's look at
What
these
kind
four
of I'm sorry. What kind of concepts?
abstract concept.
Abstract.
Abstract,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Right? So if you look at say 500 years back or so, right? When human beings were hunter gatherers, a spatial intelligence is very important, because if not, you will lose your way, right? You might get killed by wild animals, especially when you're walking around the forest and you're away from your tribe. So spatial intelligence is extremely important, and and my spatial intelligence is almost zero. So if I was born then, I would have died almost at the day when I move away from my tribe. I would never come back. Right? In reality, I still use my Google Maps when I drive from my home to office, right, or the CBD, even though I've been driving for the last 12 years. So my
I
spatial
have to
intelligence
visit
is
the
very low.
store.
So my spatial intelligence is very low, right? So, but the point is that the importance of spatial intelligence was very high then. Then came the intelligence which I spoke about the ability to understand patterns in nature, right? That was very important during the agricultural revolution that came later, wherein man was reliant on rains and patterns in nature to figure out what to plant, when to reap, when to harvest, right? When to water, when to be careful about rains and fields and things like that. So an ability to understand patterns, right, in nature, that intelligence was more important than spatial in the agricultural revolution period. And me, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call, may not have even both. Spatial may be very low. The ability to understand patterns may be very low. Those are the ones who might step out for a walk, and in between it starts raining. While their friends might say that, yeah, I didn't step out for a walk yesterday because I knew it was going to rain, right? So that's the second type. The third type of intelligence, right, for the sake of this example, is a logical intelligence, which was very important the last 5 decades, right? Wherein a lot of
Yeah.
jobs are all about
Yes.
mathematics and clerical
Yes.
work and finance and accounting, and even technology jobs was all about coding
Mm,
and algorithms and
mm.
logical structures and things like that. So that became more important than the last two. Now, where we are moving towards, in my view, is where the abstract concepts are very important. So, people who had a capability to understand a lot of abstract concepts, right, they were not even recognized in the past three phases which I spoke about because it was not important. And if somebody talks a lot of abstract concept, they were even branded as mad, right? But the if you look at the last 100 years, so it's called Flynn effect. Last 100 years, the average human IQ has almost doubled. The reason for that is because the abstract intelligence capability. Yeah, look it up. It's called Flynn effect. The abstract intelligence capability of human beings have grown because we have started using that, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So what does that mean? And that's why I like your example. At every phase of human evolution, a certain type of intelligence is more important. The rest of it, let's leave it to machine. That's the
Yep.
way to look at AI as well. So there are
Mhm.
certain intelligence which is important for the stage where we are going into. The rest of it, outsource it to the machines.
And by analogy, this is exactly how an organization in crisis or in flux, or any social group in crisis or flux, different people at different points in the crisis will arise as a leader based on the skills and intelligences they have to offer relevant at that time. Now,
Yeah.
it's time for a did you know? No, not a did you know? It's time for a have you heard? A fun fact. Sorry, we switched these two today. Um, Here's a fun fact from the totally awesome book of crazy stories by Bill O'Neill. MRI studies have proven that when we look at a person we're in love with, part of our brain switches off. It's the part responsible for good judgment. Now, I would like to ask your response to this and how this applies to AI and human stuff we do, and then we're going to go to questions. We've got a number of them.
I definitely trust this because I'm sure that happened with my wife when she decided to get. decided
It
to
happened
get-
with me and my husband.
so,
Yes,
so I'm happy that such things happen, right? So
somebody proved it.
somebody proved it, right? And by the time they recognize it's too late. So and we have two kids running around the house, so it's too late. So that's good.
That's the only reason you got two kids running around the
Yeah.
house. That's the only reason I got.
Right, yeah.
The human race would die out. Come on.
So that's what the grand design takes care of certain things, certain especially the weaknesses of certain individuals. The grand
Oh
design
yeah.
takes care of it.
If women remembered pain, we would have died out.
They would have
Um, so I would like to switch over to some wonderful questions. The first one is from Himanshu. Could you please elaborate on social capital structure with some examples?
Okay, so Himanshu, thanks for that question. So the fundamental definition of social capital is the contribution that you bring to a network. So let's dissect the word social capital. Capital means value, right? Social is all about networks. So social capital generally people think is the value from the network, but in reality, social capital is the value that you bring to the network. So now, if you were to dissect, if you were to look at social capital structures, uh, academically, there are three types of social capital structures. So the bottom one is structural. So structural social capital is, for example, a colleague who sits next to you. You did not want to build that relationship. You did not decide on building that relationship, but that person is sitting next to you or your neighbor. You did not choose them, right? But due to a structure in which you are a part of and you are playing a role, the adjacencies in those structure brought in a social capital, right? So that's what a community is all about, right? So that's the social capital. That's the structural social capital. At the second level is what's called a relational social capital when you start investing in each other, right? And that's what we call as relationships. So the general word for relationships that we all use in both personal and professional lives is all about, okay, you know what, I have a good relationship with that person means that there is a mutual value and there's a mutual respect or a mutual trust or something positive, right? The third level of social capital structure is what is called a cognitive social capital, wherein you and I do not have anything to do with each other, but both of us stand for something bigger, right? And that cognitive connection that we have with something larger than ourselves is what is driving us forward. And interestingly, that's cognitive social capital structure is what brings armies together. That's what brings organizations together, and sadly, that's what brings even terrorists together. So that's the three levels of social capital structures, right? And then there are different vectors to diagnose it, but for the sake of time, I'll just stop at that.
Very, very cool. Thank you. So now we have a specific question from Nisha Ravi. Implementation of AI in the banking sector. Does it really help the customer if you're going to use this AI thing?
Yeah. So I have a very strong thesis around this, and I don't have proofs around that, but I have a strong thesis around this. So let me probably I'll just talk about that a little bit, and I will be glad to hear back responses on that. So let's look at relationship banking. Right? So if you look at relationship banking, due to the limitation of resources, any bank would be forced to park the best relationship bankers with the customers who are having the largest transactions with them. So they get the best service, no doubt about that. Now, as the economy booms, what happens to the people at the center, right? Or the people in the median, or even people who are at the lower rung of the transaction volumes? So they normally get relationship bankers, who may not be really extraordinary, or who may not know everything about the product and things like that. So you do not get the best services that the top notch customers get. And there are organizations which have solved that. So how they did that was by using AI to using AI, train an engine which learns from the best in the bank, the best relationship managers in the bank, bring their best practices, and that AI becomes a tool which helps the relationship managers who are servicing the mid-tier. So
So
what happened?
DBS is the leader in this, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they use
Yeah,
ChatGPT to do that. Yeah, correct.
they profiled who's the best and
Yeah.
said, okay, how can we make people more like that?
Right. So there, what happens is the outcome. Now, back to your question, Nisha, is that did that help the customer? It definitely did. It helped the customer who was not getting the best, but someone who is servicing that customer is learning from the best. So it in turn helps the customer. So there are definitely use cases where it helps the customer.
So it seems to me like what you're saying is that AI can help us perform better as humans. It can be a tool that we work with, and we need to learn how to work with that technology. Does everyone have to go out and be an AI programmer? No, but you do need to learn how to work with the AI and what it
Yeah.
does and doesn't do.
Yeah.
It'll go through many, 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 many examples that you couldn't possibly. It'll be far more accurate. It'll remember things like I don't. But I'll walk into a structured situation with my banking customer and I'll say, ooh, let's look at this unstructured situation and let's structure it together. And let's come up with connections that maybe are novel, maybe nobody has made, and we can invent something, yada, yada, yada.
Exactly.
So if we pair my messy mental capabilities with the structured AI capabilities, maybe we can match an AI and a bot together to perform better. And that comes back to like chess. You know, it used to be the best chess players in the world were human. Then the best chess players in the world were bots. And then they found that the best chess players in the world now are the human bot combination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So CJ, you brought in a very important point there, which is about, even you look at the conversation that we had today, right? And if we were having the same conversation, say 5 years back or 10 years back, the tonality of this conversation would be more of fear, right? So today the tonality of the conversation is more about, yeah, so it's good, but can it be bad, and how do I make it good? So the
Opportunity.
it's an opportunity, right? So they like, and again, I have this good bad habit of going back to humanities for technology, right? So the way I look at it is, It is like a country which has to be open to immigration, right? So when a country is open to
Very relevant.
immigration, right? When your country is open to immigration, the mindset of people should be that, see, you know what? It's not that I'm going to lose my jobs. It's good for my country as well. When I bring in talent, but that should not replace me. That's correct. It should augment us to grow together.
Yes, yes,
The
yes.
new age immigrants who are going to come to our society is actually technology. It's actually artificially intelligent technology which is going to come. So we need to learn with them. We need learn to work with them. We need to learn to integrate with them. We need to learn to make them a part of our society in the rightful manner. But at the
Mhm.
same time, they need to play by our rules. They cannot come in and change our constitution. They cannot come in and change our culture. They cannot come in and change our structures. So that's the right answer. So our right way in which I believe technology should actually get integrated with us, and it requires a new capability that we all should learn and develop, learning to work with technology.
Beautiful. I love that. And there's a wonderful TED Talk saying basically that, look, if you hired a human being to come into your organization for $1 million, you would put them on the org chart and you would introduce them to the team and you would have team reviews. Are we working well together? And employee reviews at the end of every year. Why is it that we bring in technology into the organization and we don't do that? The tech should be on the org chart, just like a human, and introduced to the team. And there should be a team build and regular reviews to grow together and all that. I think it's important as well to come back to the ethics question. One of the new jobs that has been invented recently is AI ethicist. And if we're teaching the AI and we have confused ethics, aren't we confusing our AI children, students, and so forth? And the mess really is ours. It's not their fault. It's ours. We've got questions. We got to move on. Move. Christine Mukherjee has come up with some wonderful questions or statements here. Technology can be used to solve every human problem. I hope so. When humans come together and decide to do something better for humanity, then things start moving forward. So it's interesting. She started with the tech be used to solve every human problem, and then talked about it's the humans that need to come together. What do you think about all that?
So the absolutely agree with the concept, right? But the challenge in humans agreeing to come together is that the basic structure within which we humans operate itself is not codified, right? So your ethics and my ethics itself could be different, right?
Yeah.
So there's a very simple problem that we all talk about in the world of ethics, right? So in the world of ethics and cultural nuances, is just imagine that you're standing on top of a mountain and you're standing next to a person who is very well built and heavy, and you see that a cart is going down and there are three kids who are playing, and you know that if the cart goes and hits the kids, all three kids will die. While you have the choice of pushing the man next to you who is very heavy, he will fall on the cart, he will die, the cart will break, but you save the three kids. So will you kill the man and save the kids, or will you just save the man and leave it to destiny? I'm sure the answer in the room is always divided. So we as human ourselves do not have a uniform code of conduct. So the back to the question or the perspective that Christine mentioned, when humans come together, that part is where the challenge is, because we are
And
divided
that
humans ever.
and that's the social capital part. We need to be coming together and not just collecting the dots, but connecting them and co-creating, which is something that we need to do more of. Um, Believe it or not, we've got a comment, and then it's time for a puzzler. Palav J gave us an example and said, fintech changed the way people bank. And similarly, we need to think how AI, ML, robotics can enhance our living further. So, absolutely with you. All right, it's time for a puzzler, everybody. We had a puzzler last week, and it was basically that there's a 30-story office building and a window cleaner. Now, one day, the window cleaner is not using any safety equipment at all and slips and falls, but is not hurt. How on earth did that happen? The correct answer was given to us by Rahul Venugopalan and said, well, obviously, the window cleaner was cleaning the windows inside the building. So we are happy to share these kind of creativity puzzles with you to challenge your thinking, and we've got one more. So today's puzzler is Raul is an assistant butcher. Okay. Raul reaches more than 6 feet in height, over 183 centimeters. Okay. And wears a size 10 shoe, a UK size 9. What does he weigh? If you think you know the answer, then please send it to jobtalk@spjane.org. Arun, we've got like 3 minutes left, max 4. Are there any special messages that you want to give to us on social capital and working with our advanced technologies?
So, more than a message, I will share a interesting observation which I learned from an AI researcher once I was speaking to him. Somebody who designs customer experience. So he said something very interesting that in Asia, when somebody calls a call center, the mindset is all about how do I work around the call center algorithm and very quickly talk to a customer service representative, right? So if you press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, let me wait till can I press a 9 or a 0. So very quickly, I want to just talk to a customer service representative, right? And so his observation, it's not my opinion. He says, and as per him, while cultures which have seen technology over time, their trust in the technology is much higher. That they wait patiently for all the options, right? And they understand that okay, if it is not there, then I should go and look for the option to talk to the customer service representative. So what does that actually show? That the acceptance of technology also is very nuanced. It's very nuanced on how used to are we with technology. How much do we trust technology, right? And how much do we trust technology's capability to solve our real world problems? So while we are struggling, think technology also is struggling. Just imagine that technology had a life, and think about having a conversation with technology. The answer, the pointer that technology will raise to us would be that, you know what, I'm struggling. I'm trying my best to help you, right? And I'm willing to listen to what you say. I'm here to help. I'm not here to replace. But the problem is that technology is too servile. And it doesn't have a brain of its own. So if it has a wrong master, then it can do very bad things. So if something is very powerful and is potent, you don't keep them away, right? You keep them close, you mentor them, and you ensure that they are put in the right hands in the right direction to solve the right problems. So, one of the most important skills, and I would call it a social imperative, is for all of us, whether we are technologists or not, to be a part of the dialogue, to understand where technology is going, and to have our voices really heard, just the way it works in a good democracy, on where technology should go, what it should be doing, and what it should not be doing.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. Very eloquent and so right. I'm kind of ashamed to pop in at the end with this kind of lowbrow example, but I'll do it anyway. Because you and I have talked about this example before, ATMs.
Yeah.
It's a low tech, it's not a big high tech thing, but banks put in ATMs hoping to replace tellers. And they made the business case based on that. Okay, now it's 2022, all right? We have more tellers than ever before. But the teller job today is very different from the teller job 20 years ago. It's a problem solving, relationship managing, much higher level job. So whenever we're talking about tech, be it low tech or high tech, we are challenged to elevate ourselves. And I think you've put it very rightly, to talk to our tech and work well with it. Beautiful. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Aaron, very, very much.
Thank you,
Well,
CJ.
thank you. I'm looking at the watch and it's happened again. As they say on Car Talk, you have squandered another perfectly good hour, in our case, 45 minutes, listening to Job Talk. Thank you to our esteemed guest, Arun Sundar. You are brilliant and you've been so helpful to us today. And we'll see you all next week.
Thank you, CJ, for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you. Bye.
Me too. Thank you. Bye bye.